Marcus Muse.
What
It's good. It's good. Thank you for coming through.
You want me to ding this? This is the ritual cup.
This is the ritual cup, yes. Yeah, perfect. Perfect, bro. This is Integrated OKC, and I'm here with Marcus Muse, tattoo artist, musician, visionary. Just, man, tell us who you are. Let's get started. Let's get right into it.
Well, I am Muse. That's what most people call me. Marcus Muse, actual legal name.
Oh, okay. I'll cut that out.
Nah, it's all good. I actually don't do music, but I just ding that cup pretty good.
Yeah, I think you did, man. You could be a percussionist. We all got a heart. We're all a drummer because we got heartbeats.
Right.
All of us are drummers.
Right. Yeah, I do art. I've been doing art all my life. I've been doing art professionally, though, about 15 years in Oklahoma City. I've been doing tattoos a little bit longer than that. Mm-hmm. And I also do all types of other art, too. The martial arts, I do karate, shurei-ryu. And I also do comedic yoga. So we do life art, kind of what I call it, or spiritual art. And I'm just a student of the world, and I just try to maximize my studies. And once I get a hold of it, I try to give it to as many people as possible.
Beautiful, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, growth has a lot to do with I found out, student mentality, and B, replication. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. You don't really have to worry about getting better. You're gonna get better. Mm-hmm. At whatever you do, as long as you keep repeating it.
Right, 100%. Right. I mean, I notice when I hit a plateau, if I start teaching somebody, that's when I start hitting the heights and start, getting off my plateaus, not being stingy with the knowledge.
In shurei-ryu, it's a practice for you to teach when you start.
Shurei-ryu
and karate, yeah.
What's it called?
Shurei-ryu.
Shurei-ryu.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. Whenever you get a hold, after your white belt teaching, even you start instructing people because people are always coming in, and the grandmaster can't stop to teach white belts all the time. We're trying to move forward, so it's always a practice for you to teach because it helps you retain the knowledge and go forward. So
100%, man. So you say you've been doing art for 15 plus years. You've been doing art all your life, but professionally 15 years. You were doing tattoos before then. What kind of got you started in the arts?
Man, just boredom. Just sheer boredom. And I think at the inception, it was just something that myself and my siblings just did whenever we got really bored.
Yeah.
We would draw Power Rangers and Dragon Ball Z characters and try to make them not look like light bulbs, and failed many times.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think we had a cousin who would come from Vegas, and he was really good to us back then, and he kind of did some stuff that really inspired us to do it a little bit better, and I think it stuck with me the most. And I'm sort of I used to be more competitive, back in the day. That kind of stuck with me a little bit because I don't remember doing it in elementary school and almost even middle school. I had an art class in middle school that I enjoyed, but I wasn't doing it in my, on my own. But whenever I got into high school, that's whenever people started pushing on me. Oh, you should, do tattoos and stuff like that. Because they wanted tattoos, right. not because I would. Yeah. But I didn't listen to them because it was illegal.
Oh yeah, because you were too young at the time.
No, it was just illegal in Oklahoma.
It's illegal to do tattoos.
It was illegal to do tattoos.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. It only became legal in 2006.
Wow.
We were the last state to legalize it.
Dang.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Right. You learned something new today. And I didn't take it up, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's like telling me to do drugs. Like, why would you do that?
Right.
Or sell drugs or whatever. So no, I didn't do that immediately, but eventually I got one.
Wow.
And then I was like, you know what? They're right. I could do that. Like, that was so easy.
100%.
Yeah, and I started doing it.
And when did you start? What year did you start doing that?
Maybe, maybe it was like 2000, 2002. I don't know, something like that.
Okay, then you were like, oh, let me go ahead and try this out. This out.
Right. So I got a tattoo from that guy, and then I got a tattoo from another guy down the street. And
damn, he was on a roll.
Right. And yeah, I was asking them, how do they make their tattoo machines, because they totally made it out of like just stuff.
Right.
You know? And they told me, and I made one. And then I started tattooing my siblings. And then
they started using sticks or something. What were you using?
No, we made like little machines out of like radios and
shit.
Yeah. I tore my little sister's radio up and took the motor out of it and the little discs and just like made a little machine out of it.
No, that is next level. So there's I didn't even know there was a motor in a radio, let alone there's a motor in a radio you could take out and turn into a
back in the day, we used to have CD players and stuff like that.
You
had a CD player too?
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
The big one, it was the joint.
Some had to get the CD spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, you're right. There's a motor in that one.
There's a motor in there. Some people would take apart like clippers, the motor that's inside, but that was like too hefty for, for a tattoo machine.
You turn that clipper on, in
your hand. It'll give you carpal tunnel. You hold it for long enough. I started doing that, and it was kind of on the side just to make some extra money, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't legal, like I said. So I was doing culinary arts, and then I thought I was going to do that, but tattoos became legal. Yeah. And as soon as they did, I was over there. I slid right up in there. I knew they didn't have any people. There was like 0 apprentices. I'm literally like one of the first apprentices that Oklahoma had.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got in there, slipped in there, and then the rest is history. I started painting after that, drawing a lot more, and then painting.
So you were like, pencil, graphite, charcoal first?
Just pencil.
Just pencil.
Mechanical pencil. Mm-hmm. It was like the farthest I had gone outside of.
Like, I don't know about all those other
stuff.
This is what I got right here. This is what I click.
Get
to it.
Right, and it wasn't very good. At all. Like, it wasn't very good.
I mean, I definitely relate and connect with the anime Dragon Ball Z characters. Mm-hmm. When I got started in artwork, it was, like I said, my brother had drawn the Spider-Man, and I didn't know he traced it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, wow, that looks so cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to draw like my big bro. And, we'll just draw Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z characters and stuff. They look like little block dudes. They always standing like this.
Yeah.
Always standing with the chest up.
Right on.
That dynamic, and we just progressed from there. But it's so cool how many of us start that way. But you had like kind of a very unique opportunity where you were in that place where it was illegal at one point, and then you were able to hop into tattooing as it became legal in Oklahoma, which is huge. That's what they call open sea market.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's nobody there, and you just get to
right. And I mean, we had a lot of cover-ups because people were getting all those illegal tattoos for so long, and we did that for like the first 10 years of whoever's tattoo career was. There was no one who could say, oh yeah, my grandfather was a tattooer, or my dad, or there's no one who could say that. So everyone was pretty much on the same level. You had some people who, did practice art before. It was rare in the tattoo community. That did have some sort of prowess, but everybody pretty much started out on the same level. So
right.
It was an even playing field. So there was nothing that you could get that the next man couldn't, So it's really just about setting yourself apart and And I think artists genuinely figured out that you have to draw every day, and like really to set yourself apart, you have to like get yourself like better and better. So, and there's several different ways you can do that as an artist. Draw every day, yeah, that's one. But then you figure out you're gonna get better and better the more you do it. And so it breaks it down to what is your style gonna be? How do you create your style? And that's all about your environment. So encapsulating yourself, or let me say, becoming inclusive into a bigger lifestyle was one of the major ways that I decided to do that. And that's just becoming a world learner, a traveler, an experiencer. And that really turned my art into, something different, and it kind of set it outside and set it apart from everybody else who was just doing what everybody wanted them to do, or what was in the industry. Okay, I'm just gonna keep replicating this, and and wear Jordan 1s, and
where's the substance?
Right.
Where's the, like you said, it's a reflection of your lifestyle. So you said a lot of things that are really great. I wanted to pick out on. I think the biggest one at this point, though, how did your specific lifestyle choices influence the progression and prowess of your art and your style?
Number one is history. I'm very much interested in history, world history, African history, African American history, and origins. And because if you figure out where you came from, you can figure out where you're going. And I mean, that just says it right there. If you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going to go. So, and that plays a huge part in your art. Right. All right. So it's easy to tell if somebody's doing art, even if they're really good, especially if they're really good and they have no sense of their persona identity, their physical identity and all of that. They don't have any clue about what that is, because then they'll just paint whatever, no matter how good it is. And what are you saying? Like you said, what are you saying with your art? And that's one of the hardest things to pick apart for people. And one of the hardest ways to stand outside, is because then you have to ask yourself that question, well, who am I? Where do I come from? What is this skin thing that I have on? And, and all of that. And, how is all this around me? So 99% of people never ask themselves that question. Right. And 99.9% of people never actually do the research that's required, the inner research that's required to actually, become proficient in the knowledge. 100%. And so, that was the biggest thing, was actually figuring that out and figuring me out inside. And then it was easy after that. It's all easy. You're just expressing that, that's always coming out of you. That's always being, it's always, you're always figuring it out. You're always figuring out new things from inside, and then you just express that. In all of the different ways. And really, you just have to figure out, because there are tons of people who have figured that out. You just have to make sure that you're not doing the same thing that they're doing, and or you just do it in a slightly different way.
Right. I mean, because like it's all categories. I think we're all, it's like quilts, quilts, different seams, fabrics, threads. We might be somewhat of the same shade, same tint, same color, same background, same origin of the fabric, but it's all going to be expressed a tad bit different. And what hits me, I don't know if you've heard this expressed a whole lot, but I've seen it expressed a lot. Or a master will ask a potential new apprentice to boil him a cup of tea. Mm-hmm. And the master will taste the tea and then decide whether or not the apprentice is worthy, based on what he tastes in it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hear what you say. Mm-hmm, I want to hear what you project. Mm-hmm. Basically, your personality is reflected in the work that you do. Yeah,
even the simplest thing.
Even the simplest things. To just feel, I taste a little bitterness in here. We'll see what that looks like. Or like, there's a subtle undertone of like sweetness in this. That how do you brew this? I mean, the time, the length. Yeah. All those decisions.
It's too hot. Why'd you bring it to me now?
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah.
Right.
You trying to kill me?
Yeah. Like, right, well, who else are you trying to kill 10 years down the line after I teach you?
You're like shaking while you're bringing it. What's up with this kid?
Yeah, exactly.
I get that.
Exactly. So, I think that I try to pay a whole lot of attention when I'm looking at somebody's work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I'm looking at the brushstrokes or tattooing. I've had a lot of people like yourself say, like, you need to get into tattoos. You should do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't found the right person that would make me feel comfortable to hop into that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's both ways. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
Students got to be congruent with the masters. The master has to accept to be congruent with the student. And plus, I mean, you see what people's artwork says about them. And it's so like 1-to-1 ratio.
It is. You know, even now, I'm just absolutely just not accepting apprentices. Just like anytime anybody comes with those little Oliver Twist or what's his name, those little puppy eyes. Please, sir.
Have some more.
Yeah.
Have some
Yeah. I have no sympathy. I'm like, just get out of here. Like, what are you doing? Just get out of here. And yeah, it's just, you know, I just don't have any patience for it right now, you know, and I say that with sincerity, because I've given a lot of time and a lot of energy into it, and people these days don't have what it takes, and that sucks to say, you know, but I think we have to wait until, you know, things change in the world. But right now, people are not, they're not hardworking. You know, and they don't know how to read a room. They don't know how to boil tea. They have zero idea how to boil tea. And until tea becomes a thing again, I'm just not going to try to make, you know, these lazy people into great tea makers, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
You ain't trying to make limoncello out of dirt and old tangerines.
No. And I'm not making chai tea lattes. That's not what we're doing.
That's not what we're doing.
With the little leaf, we're not doing that right now.
Not what we're doing.
No.
So I mean, 'cause that brings up an interesting point. What would you like to see? I mean, if you had, you know, just saying, we're like, okay, 99% of people aren't doing that. They're not hardworking. I can understand that.
Right.
But what are they not getting?
Just simple things like trades. Think about your trades and your plumbers, your electricians, the people that you can't do without. Your sink starts to mess up. Most people are going to try to go to YouTube, or they're going to try to do, you know, this or that. And that sense of, oh yeah, well, I have YouTube, so I can do anything. That when that goes away, and you have to realize that that person who decided to make their career and their livelihood out of, you know, learning a craft is appreciated. Until that's important again. Yeah. But, you know, I see a lot of people who come around, and because they ordered some stuff off of Amazon, they think they're an expert at that thing. And it's like, no, there are people who are spending so much time, like really laboring, you know, intensive focus for years and years and years to get something down, and they're not, and you're just trying to run over them.
Right.
It's like, you know, you just can't do that.
So you're saying is there's not enough humbleship.
Right.
In new apprentices, like.
Right.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I taught myself how to do a lot of things.
Right.
I taught myself how to play guitar. Taught myself how to do art.
Right.
There was a fair amount of stumbling around.
Right.
Wasting a lot of time doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And, you know, I'm still not Eric Clapton.
But you know what? I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot more than somebody who feels like because they did that, then they are Eric Clapton.
Yeah. No, Eric Clapton played with so many other people before. I mean,
right.
You're not seeing Eric Clapton at those beginning stages. You're seeing him post mentorship.
Right.
You're seeing him post, like, you know, getting all that deep knowledge. And again, that you're saying, if someone's spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day doing this thing, learning this thing, that there's a lot of peripheral insight that comes from the pursuit of that, So you're coming with the focus of, all right, here, I've got this goal. But if you're paying attention, you learn all this other stuff on the way. And like you're saying, people are self-aware, they can't read a room.
Right. And the thing is that those traditions go back so long, So think about somebody who makes traditional temples or houses or, the old way. Think about anybody who does anything the old way and how important those traditions are to making things easier for people. Right. And we're getting to a point where people are ignoring those things. It's gonna crumble those traditions, and it's gonna destabilize what it took people hundreds of thousands of years to build.
Right.
And again, if you don't know where you come from, even if it's not your tradition, if you don't know the work that was put in for that thing, it's not gonna develop well for the future.
Right, 100%, because you're not respecting the steps that were taken before you. Understanding. So now I'm curious. Muse. Tell me about the journey you took in going back and revisiting those steps. How did you do that in painting? How did you do that in tattoos?
Well, definitely was an unlearning of a lot of things that I thought I knew, and kind of reaching of a point of just inclusivity and openness and awareness. That was the first step. And then you're able to experience, things as they are, for what they are, not, what people say it is, not, and then you have a question mark and a light bulb on your head all the time, and when new information comes in, it's exciting. It's enjoyable. It's, it's joyous. It's this, it's that, it's whatever it is, and that creates an amazing experience for you to share things. So one thing that I ended up doing was, creating a blank slate. Like I said earlier, kind of going within and asking myself some hard questions. And I would actually pursue the answers. So I would go to a lot of museums, historical museums at that. One of my favorite things to do still. Whatever institute, whatever, traveling experience I could go to. I went to Rome. I went to St. Petersburg Basilica with one of my apprentices at the time. And at the same time, we were doing a tattoo convention in Milan. And I mean, you can imagine how amazing that was.
Rome is beautiful. I've been to Rome.
Right.
It's just like Starbucks, Roman column,
right.
column crumbling.
Right.
Oh,
right.
There's a Starbucks right next to it.
Right.
Wow.
And then the amount of art that I saw there and the amount of history that was there, it was colossal in my mind. And imagine that experience kind of coming in, and some things I experienced it was just monumental. I don't know if you went into the Basilica and seen the Room of the Muses.
I think
the muses of art, the muse of music, the muse of this music.
I believe we were told about it. I think we were at the time. I was with my partner, and she had family that she was meeting. She was like, we were just up there like visiting and traveling around different places, but it just also turned out that she had family there. So we were kind of blending all these different, travel points. Like, for here, we might as well meet your family. Like,
right.
As well. Like, So he met us at the Vatican, and then he just starts showing us different places.
Right.
Trastevere.
Okay.
Vatican. We walked past the Basilica. It was too late to go in. It had already closed, but he was like, here goes the Basilica.
Okay.
He was taking us all these different alleyways. The dude was like 72. Old fella. And he was just hitting these espressos. Walking his little ass around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
right on.
But yeah. I mean, just like I did before, I was still very much like wide open, like just looking at the marbles, the marble statues, the texture that they created. It's like wow, yeah, Y'all don't have smartphones. What did y'all do? Perfect some amazing work.
Right. So that had a profound effect on you, as I could see it, on me as well. The one thing I did not see, I did see one thing that really stood out to me, and it was a bust of a Moorish man, and it was a black guy at the time. It was in a chapel, Santa Rosa or something like that, just around the way. And we were there for a week or whatever, and so we were checking out all kind of stuff, and I saw this bust of this guy, and it was 16th, 17th century or something like that, but it came from a time much earlier, like 700 AD or something, and yeah, and it was a black guy. It was the total black guy, and I was like, and he was like a bishop of this of that, and he owned a lot of, he was a big man, he was a big guy. So yeah, so that another light bulb popped in my head. And I was like, wow, I never thought about what what black folks went through before any of this, right, where we were. And it dawned on me, I went through the whole basilica, and I didn't see anything or question even anything about, whether it was, there was black people, where they were or whatever, until I saw that. And so that immediately led me the next year to Egypt, and, asking those questions over a period of a year, asking the questions about that guy and doing the research on that guy. And his name was, they just called him the Negro.
I was just about to ask you what his name was.
I think it was John Baptiste.
John Baptiste.
Yeah.
I've heard of this name.
Right.
Yeah, I heard of it.
So, and they just called him the Negro. But, and there were many people who were called that. The guy who navigated for Columbus was a black guy, and they called him the same thing.
Wow. Yeah, just erased.
Right.
Just, wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so I went to Egypt, and I learned about, let's say it took me probably 2 years to digest what happened in Egypt. I was there for 2 weeks, and I learned about the culture of Black history on the Nile and our contributions to the world, and that it actually did not begin with slavery, and that it began in an amazing way. So, yeah, and just learning that and learning the history of that, and it helped me figure out that I didn't have that sense of value that I thought I did. And how could I have had it? Because you literally don't know anything about your history, where you come from. As a matter of fact, you were told that your history was nothing and that you came from slavery.
It was less than nothing.
Right. It was less than nothing. That's a great way to put it. And that you really subconsciously have nothing to look forward to. So because you don't know where you come from, you don't have anything to live up to. So you might have all these ideas in your head, but maybe they're just crazy to you. They don't
have the worth that they should, that they naturally have. You're not seeing them as the amount of worth they actually are. Right. So you have genius thoughts, but you just dismiss it as, or other people even around you might dismiss it as, oh, you're just being crazy, or blah, 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 blah. You're acting like this, you're acting like that. When really it's your genius that's coming out and trying to blossom, as it should naturally. If you look back at your history, this is a naturally occurring thing. So to answer your question, that were two of the things that really transformed the way that I look at myself and the way that I look at art. Wow.
Now, in the future, I would learn to kind of detach from, that identity and identifying from, from things. But I would say that was essential to figuring out a piece of who you are. You're a lot more than that even.
Right. It's like saying, like, okay, look, this is where we have been.
Right.
So this is who I am naturally.
Right.
Therefore, I can create this and more.
Right. So forget that. Now that you know that, that's a great thing. Right. Let's keep going.
Let's be the spring, the fountain.
Right.
Continue to grow. So now, I want to respect your time.
You're all right.
I heard your stuff going off. So if you had one thing you could give any piece of advice you'd give the artists here in Oklahoma before we cut this down, what would it be?
Well, first,
you can look at the camera now. You can look at the purple one.
First, I would say we have another 30 minutes, so you don't have
sweet.
to. Yeah,
sweet.
You don't have to do that.
Never mind. We can hold on.
Yeah. Right on.
It was a good conversation. I wanted to.
Yeah, you have another 30 minutes, but after that, definitely I'll answer whatever questions you got.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Because we have done some huge things in history. Black people have done amazing things in history, and like you said, it's been shunted and made to feel as less than for control. But personally, I'd like to see the chains unshackled. Of course, there are no physical chains these days. There's the debt and the mental chains too. So did you feel like you were unshackling those too as you were going on your journey?
Definitely. There was a sense of liberation, a huge sense of liberation from, the system and from the systematic way of thinking, as an artist, even I never felt like I was really creating what I wanted to create. I was always doing what everybody else wanted me to do, what was popular, what was, trending.
Trendy.
Yeah, whatever that was, that's what I was doing for money.
Right.
And because I needed to pay my bills, because of the mortgage, because of this, because of that. But that's not why I do anything anymore. I don't do anything for any of those reasons anymore.
So you shifted that perspective. So now, because I see myself in the very. I'm in the first spot. What you're saying right now, as an artist. I want to pay my bills. I want to be quote unquote financially free. I think a lot of people want to do that.
Right.
They want to do that. So it sounds like you shifted your why.
And
you were getting a certain amount of effect. What kind of effect were you getting when you were just thinking about bills? I'm gonna plug this in. But
right on.
Keep talking.
When I was just thinking about bills, I only got the money, and I only got the freedom that was required to pay that bill. Okay. And I only got the freedom to do what was required to pay that bill. That's all that I got. And that had to do with me. That had to do with whoever was with me, my son. And that's all that it had to do with. But my perspective has shifted off of me into what are you going to do about the world? What are you going to do about the issues of the universe? And moving from consumer to producer, you also move from created to creator. So you have to take up that responsibility. And when you do that, you simultaneously open yourself up to, universal love, universal understanding. With universal understanding, you open up yourself to universal love. So, and that opens up an immense and an intense and infinite amount of space for you, which everything else is encapsulated in that, which is money, which is whatever. And because of your valuing of life now, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 29.
29.
Last year. Last
right
August.
On. So about 31 is when I really started to, even outside of all this, put a very good amount of value on time and life itself. And when I moved from that, then the money does not matter after that. The time matters. So literally I moved from my hourly rate from whatever it was, $100 to $150, and then from $150 to $200. And of course I had to get better, but I could do that now with the time. Right? So valuing the time led to that, and what you do with your time as well. So I'm going to use a little bit of that to get better. I'm going to use the majority of that for experience, because that's what got me there in the first place.
Right. And that opened your eyes in the first place and got you to that point in the first place.
Right. So you got to just keep that system flowing, and then the money flows as well.
Right.
So, and you never hold on to it. Because you can't anyway. So you just, it comes and it goes. You pay what you have to pay for. You don't worry about it. You don't be heartbroken over this or that, however much a painting is. It's worth how much it's worth to you. And if you don't want to sell it, don't sell it. All right? you're telling a story, and what's your story if you don't have the pieces to tell it with, you know, to other people anyway. I mean, you still have it, but yeah.
They're not seeing it, and it's not, oh, hey, here's your artist, and here's your piece.
Because you sold it.
Not for sale.
Yeah. You sold it because you don't have no, you don't have any boundaries. You don't have anything that.
Don't saw it.
Yeah.
Let me just go ahead and do this. Like.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that definitely changed my perspective, and that is the new why. And even now, like I said, you move past that, and now it's about, you know, how do I give this to other people? You know, so I'm extremely grateful for you, you know, asking me to be here on the show, and hopefully, you know, it just grows and grows exponentially, so that many people can see it, however many people see it, but hopefully many people see it.
I thank you,
Mm-hmm.
because of course everybody wants to make a show that gets big or a podcast that gets big, and you can blah 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 blah, but like, why are you doing it?
Right.
You know, what's the point? You know?
Right.
Now you can't see it now because it turned off, but the name of the podcast and the logo I created.
Mm-hmm.
I did the graphic design for it. It's Integrated OKC.
Mm-hmm.
It's a monotype, so the O, the K, and the C are all put together.
I saw that, and I saw like the little film piece on the outside. I don't know if that's what you were going for there, but I mean, that's what I saw.
Yeah.
I saw that's cool.
I mean, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm just
Right.
I think it all applies. You know, if you look at it and it's congruent for you, then take that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's detrimental.
No. I saw a special sort of synergy in there, you know. So very thoughtful. For sure.
Thanks, man. But yeah, it's like, because I'm an artist and musician, I understand like what you're saying. Like, I remember when I was selling pieces for $25, $50, and now I don't blink if, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna sell this piece for $2,500, and like, if you say no, that's fine. You know, I'm just gonna hold on to it.
Right.
It's like we're on this trajectory together, and there's so much talent here in Oklahoma City, in Oklahoma, all over the state, and I want to lift up, promote that, connect all of our circles, you know, so there is that synergy. There is that like growth that, you know, maybe God willing, I can grow this podcast into something huge, and I could break bread with an artist and just say, here's $300 for just showing up and talking about what you're passionate about.
I see.
You ain't even got to do anything about it.
I see.
You know, just, oh yeah, you sold a necklace for $5. Let's just talk for an hour about what you're passionate about. Here's $300.
That's awesome.
And share that abundance mindset that you were talking about earlier. You know, and connecting with that. The time is more important.
Right. Yeah, that's all we have. You know, and it's so precious. You know, especially at this point in time in history. You don't know what's gonna happen. From day to day, it's devastating the amount of people that die nowadays a day, as opposed to 100 years ago or 200 years ago. And it's just really scary, you know, and you wonder where the world's going, and then you wonder who's responsible, but it's us.
It's us. It's us. This is our culture.
Yeah. People like to look around whenever you say that, you know, but it's literally us, you know. Yeah. And we have to be the ones to spread the awareness about the solutions. Right. And, you know, and really start pointing at ourselves whenever it's time.
Yeah, have conversations about those solutions. And, you know, a lot of the times, like what you're saying, going back, looking at our history, realizing where we are now, and then and asking the hard questions of what do we want to see created out of that, you know. Right. Again, having these type of conversations, recording them on video and putting them in a format where people can replay this conversation. And, you know, again, I have personal goals and a personal agenda with this, but also the fact that you get to say, hey, apprentices that I don't even know, I ain't got to see you. Yeah. This is what you need to work on, and I'm not taking you on until you do. Yeah. And so, I mean, that information gets out there so we can just go ahead and start breeding that. Right.
Yeah, I hope. Well, I know we'll figure it out. So it's just more stuff like this.
And it's that replication too.
That's right.
We do what we can. We build up what we want, and then we give that to other people in hopes that they'll
that's right,
repeat and share that information.
I think it's just really important too. Maybe this is one of the questions that you were going to ask me earlier. Maybe this is the answer to one of those questions. Like one of the things that I would really say, to anybody who's watching, is I think we have to really spend more time on cultivating the things that are solution based, and we have to spend even more time unlearning the things that are not solution based. And that's where the work is. So when you asked me to do the podcast, I have a gazillion other things going on, but they have to make way for something that is actually going to spread awareness, because that's a high priority. I'm going to get better. Mm-hmm. Everything else is repetition. 100%. Right? But there comes a point where you have to understand where repetition has to meet, opportunity. And opportunity and repetition together spread the awareness that's needed for growth. And that's one of the main things that I would probably say to people is like, stop spending time on stuff that doesn't matter.
Say it again.
Yeah. Stop spending time on shit that don't matter. If in a year it hasn't affected you or anybody around you, stop doing that thing. Yes. Get it out of your memory. Get it out of your muscle memory. Just don't ever waste another thought on it.
Yes.
If it's a person in your life that's just dragging you down, if it's an energy vampire, get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And be okay with that. I know it's a person, but yeah.
It's not to be cruel. Not. I see where you come from. It's not to be cruel. But
no, you have to learn proper discernment from the jump. Mm-hmm. And that's how you keep yourself from being cruel. Because if you would have said no in the first place, then you wouldn't have put yourself in that situation.
But you wouldn't be so deeply ingrained in something that's detrimental to your life.
Right.
Something that's breeding, again, what we've been talking this whole time. What are we breeding? Are we breeding toxicity?
Right.
Or are we breeding growth and encouragement?
Right.
Because personally, I don't feel like I've done my purpose here on earth. If you walk away from this interaction not having felt more full, mm-hmm. more encouraged, more mm-hmm. purposeful. I know I can't give that to people.
Right.
But what I can do is listen to what you said, let you
mm-hmm.
get that, whatever was in your mind, back to the surface and reconnect with yourself. Because, again, like I said, I got a personal journey with this podcast. Mm-hmm. But also, we can have win-win situations where these episode right here, Muse, this is your episode.
Mm.
I might have a shameless plug in here once or twice, but trust, this is your perspective. This episode is what you want to be, what you brought to the table, what your experiences are, what you see and think needs to be better.
Right on.
A question I always ask people at the end of the podcast: what you would like to see change in Oklahoma?
Mm-hmm.
You're not a photographer, so I'm not going to ask you about photography.
Mm-hmm.
You're not an entrepreneur of life coaching or videography. That's not your medium. So, and I ask people, hey, what is something that you would like to see change
mm-hmm.
here in Oklahoma? Love to hear what that be.
I see it already. I see the growth, and I think one of the main things that I like seeing is people taking ownership. People always say, oh, they need to get it this here. They need to get it that there. And, if we just had this and blah, 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 instead of saying, oh, I'm going to put this right here. I'm going to make that happen over there on that street. And, in a few years, I'm going to make that happen too. So I would like for people to take ownership over their city and stop leaving and stop saying, over here is better than where we're at, mm-hmm. and leaving the city to rot, 100%. Because it's yours, and so is the whole rest of the world, but why would you do that? Right. California is already full up. There's nowhere for you to go. Mm-mm. Cali, New York, there's nowhere for you to go.
That's why it's so hot.
That's right. Because they're basically saying, get the F away from here.
I lived there for like 8 years in Cali.
Right.
So after I graduated out of Oklahoma State. So, yeah.
Right.
I was in Oakland for a couple of years, and then I moved out to the basically the country.
I think we all have. I lived there for a little bit too, but it was really quick for me to understand you're not going to get anything accomplished here. Only thing you can really do is take from the culture, and you really need to go back home and start doing that same thing over there. All right, on a major scale, and you can, so, yeah. And there's nothing really stopping you here, And that's beautiful and that's wonderful. And whatever you like, you can do it. Just make it happen.
Mm-hmm. There's people who will support you. There are people who will...
You don't even need that. Freaking need that.
I mean,
Just do it.
Do it.
Just do it. You like doing it? Do it.
Yeah.
Who the hell else needs to be around?
That's true. 100%.
And when you're doing your thing because you love it, then people will come. All right? Because you value it and you place the value there, everybody else is going to see it. And even if it's not everybody else, you'll have a little section where you can support yourself, and you're making the amount of money that you need to have the time that you need to live a healthy life. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all you really need. And that's what you like about the East Coast and the West Coast and blah, blah, blah. You see people doing their thing, and they're like, why do you keep staring at me?
Right.
You have a space and you have time to do that, right. Where there's just literally open land, If you want mountains, you can literally build mountains here. I think it would be a great idea, actually. I keep coming up with that same idea when I drive around, actually. I'm like, a lot of the places that I go to, it's like hilly, the canyons and all that. They're not really that big. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They're just around everywhere. It's not really that big. If you spent, a year excavating, you can build nice hills and nice lakes at the same time.
Damn, that's deep, bro.
Right?
That's deep as fuck.
Right?
That's deep.
Think about what kind of business that would be and how it would change the shape of Oklahoma. And, people just say, I wish, but you can literally do it.
You can build great lakes and great hills.
At the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any better place to put a pin in this conversation.
Right.
Until next time, because I'd love to have you back on. Things kind of happen, made decisions to where, of course, there's always got to be something. Mm-hmm. we got some stuff going on here. I didn't expect somebody to be here.
It's all right.
But the information is still super sound. All right. And I really do appreciate your time.
Oh, man.
For me personally, I don't know for whoever ends up listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
I really truly do appreciate you showing up, sharing of your thoughts, sharing of your wisdom. I know people are going to really grow from that. They really listen.
Hope so. Yeah. Hope so, man. That's my thing with everything that I do now. It's just for everybody else. Mm-hmm. I think if we can do one thing to change our lives and to change the world around us, it's stop asking ourselves, "What about me?" Mm-hmm. That question that we always ask ourselves, and we always put ourselves in the forefront of our thoughts. Mm-hmm. If we can kind of sit ourselves down a little bit, the world would change exactly how we want it to. 100%. So if I can help people with what I know, even better. That means I can know more. I can do more with what I know. So